Blog Talk Radio.
This lion, he's the king of the jungle. Huge mane out here. He's laying down under a tree in the middle of Africa. He's so big. He's so hot. He doesn't want to move. Now, the little lion comes. They start messing with him. Biting his tail, biting his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him, coming over, making trouble. Still, nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this. And they start to move in. The jackals, hyenas, they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer and bolder, till one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody, runs like the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is.
All right. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to the first World of TB Radio presents Paintball Unfiltered. I'd like to go ahead and welcome my guest, Barrie Nudi Reid. Hi, Barrie. Are you talking? Can you hear me now, Barrie?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How are you this evening?
Awesome. I'm good. Oh, this is a learning experience. You know how that is.
Well, of course it is, which is why you wanted me to be the first, right, so I can be the guinea pig?
Well, that and what most people don't realize that know that I wrote for magazines is that you made it sound so good because I wrote it and you rewrote it, and that's what was sent out, and you were the copy editor of my magazine. So, yeah, I wanted you on because if there's anybody that I respect the most in paintball, it's you. So I wanted you to be the first one.
Well, aren't you sweet? But, the editing part was interesting at times, a lot of fun at times, and just downright difficult at times. You have a unique way of wording things sometimes that makes it difficult to convey it in any other. Well, to put it like this, sometimes there's a million ways to say it, but fuck just really works.
Right.
And you had a tendency to be profane at times, less than PC or not for the PG-13 crowd. So sometimes it was interesting to rewrite the heat without the offensiveness that is TB.
For sure. Well, let's talk more about you, because here's the thing. You and I talked offline a bit about what my goal of this is, and that's kind of, you're like, well, who wants to hear my stories? And the truth is, everybody needs to hear it, because the stuff that we did is not being done now. And I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, it's bad and it's sad, but the reality is it's more sad when I say stuff like that, because there was so much depth in the game and so many teams that knew each other and had rivalries, but they were always real friendly. So, your best game was the guy who played with you for 10 games because he knew how you played. So you had those rivalries pop up and keep the game fresh and new, and now it's not really that anymore. So that's the whole reason of bringing in these stories of the stuff that you did, the impact of the game, even the game as abbreviated as it is now, the rule changes that you caused by playing the game correctly. playing the game to win. And the history of one of the most dominant women to play the game, on top of being a dominant commander. And I mean, I've said female commander, but the reality is there's not many men who could hold a candle just in how you command. That's how we got along so well, was because of that.
Well, for full disclosure here, let's just go ahead and say that TB is flat up a nudie cheerleader, has always been a nudie cheerleader. And thank you, though, seriously. I mean, that's a lot of nice, fluffy things to say. I saw where you had posted it online that I was going to be the first, and some of the things that people were posting made me smile. Some of it made me laugh and go, oh, my God, really, guys? Come on. But thank you to all the people who had positive things to say about me being the first, or the guinea pig.
Right.
As I'm going to call myself tonight.
Well, how about we do this? How about we start with just kind of what got you started in paintball? That's a big story right now with a lot of the more, as I call them, e-celebs or whatever. Everybody wants to know how somebody got started in paintball and what it was that brought them in, and who was it that brought them in. I think that was the Vulcan question of the week. This week was what brought you into paintball and who are they? So tell me that. Tell me who brought you in and who it was.
Well, actually, my roots are further back than Scenario. So if we have to tell the story, we have to start from the beginning, and that was around 1998. As most people who know me already know, I am a nurse. And nurses have a tendency to work at these places called hospitals. And there's lots of people that work in hospitals that aren't nurses, of course, but at the hospital I worked at in Northeast Texas, a bunch of the hospital staff started playing rec ball or renegade ball. And this rocked on for a couple of years. And, I mean, it was we didn't know about any, whether it's scenario. We didn't know about Scenario. We didn't know about tournament. We just knew that we had paintball markers, and that there's always someone in Texas that's got a couple of 100 acres of land that you can play on, as long as you can convince them you're not going to, ruin their barns if a barn gets shot. And basically, it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. Now, I know that's a funny cliche, but it's actually true. And in our case, we were playing summer. It was pretty hot. I think it was probably July, and I wasn't actually at this game. And I'm kind of glad I wasn't, because even though I was an ER nurse at the time, I didn't know a whole lot about paintball injuries yet. But more on that later. And we had a person who ducked down behind a bunker and lifted his goggles to try to clear the fog, and another player came up on him, not realizing his mask was up, and shot him in the eye.
Oh, wow. So
yeah, and so I can't even begin to tell you what this does to healthcare workers, because, I mean, basically we're a do-no-harm kind of bunch. And so to shoot out not only a coworker and a friend, but, to just hurt anyone in general with paintball, we were all devastated. And it's like, okay.
Right, because he actually lost his eye,
so that
right?
It doesn't happen again. Yeah, he completely lost his eye. And, it's, you hear about it on occasion. I mean, it's not near as widespread now as it used to be. But, yes, you can get hit with a paintball marker, and it doesn't even have to be 200 feet per second. And if it hits you directly in the eye, it's enough force to detach your retina and cause you to go blind. And basically that's what happened to our friend Adam, who was a radiology tech. He got shot by a CT tech. So like I said, they worked in the same department and were friends. And he lost his eye. So basically we all vowed that this was not going to happen again. And what we did is we decided to start educating ourselves, and we formed a group we called PAINT, P-A-I-N-T, and it stood for Paintball Association in Northeast Texas. And we made it our personal mission to do things like community awareness, community education. We gave safety classes. We put flyers at our local community college. We put cards at Walmart because, at the time Walmart was the premier place to get paintball equipment cheaply. And so there would be parents who took their 10-year-olds into Walmart. You know, you couldn't buy it unless you were 16, but kids can talk their parents into stuff, and if their parents didn't know anything about it, you know, they'd say, okay, whatever. And then you'd hear about another paintball injury or drive by on, you know, a town building or something like that. So we had, several of us went to the Paintball Training Institute, and we did the safety certification through that Bob Guernsey's PPI Institute.
Right.
And
so y'all were actually one of the
ourselves.
first organizations that did that kind of thing, though. Went and actually got certified and started doing paintball safety. I mean, that was something Paint was like really, really known for, was becoming like the ultra safety control of things.
Well,
or the
again,
expert, so to speak.
you don't know how devastating it is until you're doing something that's fun and you actually hurt someone with it, and it you know, it costs them something that they're never going to get back.
Right.
I mean, so for us, it was a big deal, and we were a very close-knit family at the hospital, so we didn't want it to happen again to anyone, not just one of our own. So we started. Now, you got to keep in mind, when we were playing rec ball, we played 48 to probably 52 weekends a year. That was in the first 2 years that we were playing rec ball. I mean, because we were just, I don't want to say obsessed, but let's just say that healthcare workers need viable outlets for the stress
right.
and tension that they face in their jobs. And this was perfect. It was, you know, once you've got your paintball equipment, it was just, you know, the cost of the paint. And so...
But then y'all also had an organization where y'all bought, you know, basically stuff at cost to help defray stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we had it was
a
actually
nonprofit.
My husband Warren. Well, no, he had an actual business, so he was the storefront for
right.
paint, so that we could feed our addiction to paintball. And like
right.
I said, we played 48 out of 52 weekends a year, rain or shine, for the first 2 years. And I mean,
because y'all basically became,
paintball.
instead of a renegade kind of group, y'all actually became like a premier field. It was just everything was private. It was like an ultra private group or club, because most people think renegade up to the point of when he got hurt, and then after that, of course, y'all became, because you were buying stuff, that means you're in the industry, you're talking to people in the industry, you're staying up to breast on the safety of the industry. So you're basically running a paintball field. It's just a very select group of clientele that's on it.
Well, no, I wouldn't say we were even running a paintball field, because we played at a couple different places. Like I said, in Texas, it's easy to find a couple of friends who have a couple of 100 acres that they'll let you play on, as long as you can convince them you're not going to fuck anything up. But so it was just a cost-effective way to feed the addiction. I mean, honestly, it was, because we didn't sell to anybody outside of the club, and it was just to support our paintball habit. So, but I mean, that's basically where it got started, and it kind of expanded from that, because we started. Word got out, and I guess at the height of paint, there were probably 60 people that were part of the association. And so we started working with the local sheriff's departments and police departments and training with the military, like at Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, because we had the gear, we had the ability to get paint, and they had really started getting into training with paintball markers at the time, you know, before they got into the pepper rounds and Tom K and Perfect Circle and all that. But so we got to do a lot of really neat things and go a lot of places that probably we wouldn't have been able to go to if it hadn't have been for the safety part of the association. Right.
Because, I mean, you actually, like a lot of people that did it in the military, played scenario. I mean, it wasn't, you played scenario paintball, but, I mean, in there, you know, the military trained scenario style. They give you a mission, and there's stuff going on, and there's actors and stuff like that. So, I mean, you've actually been the op-4 against real military trainees
absolutely.
or
probably
that.
One of the neatest things I've ever done in my life was training with the military, and we did it 2 or 3 years. I think up at Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, playing OP4, and it was just a blast, and they loved it. I mean, it was Oklahoma Army National Guard is who we were working with, and Camp Gruber has a mount site. They actually have 2 mount sites, but this was the least expensive, less than like Camp Blanding. This was their wooden mount site. They wouldn't dream of us shooting up their multi-million-dollar nice mount, but they had a smaller one that was all wooden that we could just shoot the crap out of. Now, keep in mind, these guys, they had paintball markers in their armory, so all we did was, bring up 300-400 cases of paint, and then, we trained with them. So it was probably one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to do in paintball, and I loved every minute of it.
Right.
But
so
I guess it was around
you got to tell that story though attached to that. We talked a little bit about it earlier today, but I mean that was one of my favorite stories. I mean, a lot of people don't know, or they may not have realized it, but you and I went to a lot of games together, and we drove because it was cheaper. And so, I mean, we spent hours on the road retelling stories of shit that we did at games, or even before, shit we just did in our life. Stories where, me, you, and Warren are driving and talking about military shit.
There's a lot of time to kill on the road when you're driving to, say, Sherwood Forest from Texas. About 18 hours that you got to fill with something. And so story time became quite famous, and people enjoyed riding with us just for story time. Okay, I'll tell this story.
Okay.
I guess it was the first time that we trained with the National Guard unit. They were, this particular time, working on their CQB, or their close quarters combat room clearing techniques, which I'm not going to elaborate on what that is. Most people who play scenario paintball have a pretty good idea what it means. Like you said, there's lots of former military, law enforcement, all that in scenario paintball, so take it and run with that. But in this particular scenario, I was playing what was supposed to be a non-combatant. So I was sitting in a chair in the middle of the second room that they came into, and I specifically got told by range control that I could leave a marker, a paintball marker, 20, 30 feet away next to a tree, and if they kept me secured, then I was going to complete my non-combatant, or complete the training as a non-combatant. If they did not keep me secured and I found a way to get over to my paintball marker, well, then they got what they got. And so teams of 5 were coming into this room and clearing it. I'm sitting in this chair, and I'm just screaming and yelling at them and everything, but I don't have a gun. They know that. And so they grabbed me. And about the time that they start trying to get me secure, one of the other guys by the name of Jason Brandt, who was in the Oklahoma Guard, but he actually was part of Paint too, he started shooting at them at their ankles because he was underneath it like a desk. And so They just kind of freaked the fuck out. And I'm still screaming, and it's just chaos in this room, right? And so they start trying to grab me and get me out of the room so that I'm I guess, less of a distraction. Well, when they got me outside, Jason is really blotting into him, and they can't really figure out how to get him. And they let me go. And so I sashayed over to my marker, yes. And I came back in, and I'm not going to lie, it's probably the one time in my life that I'm holding a paintball marker gangster style. And I start screaming, "You killed my father." And I just start popping them right in the mask, and I mean, they were screaming, "She cheated! Oh my God, she cheated!" And I'm laughing because now I've eliminated this entire squad. And they go to range control, and he said, "Well, what was it I told you to do? Clear the rooms, secure any non-combatants, kill any hostiles. You let her go, you get what you fucking get." And so they were kind of a little butt sore about that. But, dudes in the Army have a tendency
which I will say, hold on, with a quick interjection, what I will say, that's pretty much how you're known in scenario paintball as well.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I know that was the only group that I got it over on because they were so mad. They went back and told every bunch of dudes that came through on that exercise, if you secure her, don't let that bitch go. And, I had guys jerking me up out of the chair, slamming me against the wall saying, shut the fuck up, bitch, shut up now. And I was just laughing. I was rolling. And,
right.
But you know what? They learned, and they kept me secure, and I didn't get to kill another one in that whole particular training exercise, but it was a lot of fun. And
right.
They took it seriously. And, and that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a learning exercise, and at least the first group learned, and they told 2 friends, and so on and so on. So, but it was fun. But I guess
so
that was around the same time.
How did you get into scenario paintball then?
Well, that's what I was about to go into.
Right.
That's about the same time that a couple of our guys found out about Viper's Twilight Zone and T-Rip. And so they were like, hey, let's go check this out. It kind of sounds like what we do, but, it's more organized and there's, a storyline and things to do. And everybody was like, okay. And I didn't get to go. That was in 2000 because I was working on my master's program, and so I actually was in school on Saturdays. And I was really upset about that because my husband and all of these people went with us, or went with them. And that was the birth of DOP. What you got to understand is the paint organization still existed. And so any of our teams, scenario team, the female scenario team, later on our speedball teams, it was all a playoff of paint. So our scenario team was Disciples of Paint, or DOP. We had a scenario team called Painted Paint, which they loved to bastardize and turn into Painted Paint, but that's neither here nor there. And they just thought they were cute. And so they went.
And then when all the women
game,
ran together, what did y'all call yourselves?
BOP, or Bitches of Paint. And
very confident female paintball players. I think was a requirement to be on that group.
We'd already been playing for 2 years, and so we weren't afraid of a paintball gun. We certainly weren't afraid to shoot people. And,
right. Plus, it doesn't hurt your husband as an infantry officer. Right. And it doesn't hurt your husband's an infantry officer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years of basically private training with law enforcement and military. So women who actually got shot and played hard and didn't ask for any quarter and gave none because they understood basically how to play the game from a male perspective.
Well, and we were playing so much rec ball. We enjoyed shooting the guys,
right.
If someone brought a friend who went, I can't shoot her, she's a girl. Well, they usually live to regret that statement.
Right, y'all would shoot him twice until he shot you. You'd push him until he shot you because that's what you wanted. I mean, that was the thing that I really, when I first met you guys at Blanding, that was what I had heard, and that was what I saw because, I didn't play Blanding, the first Blanding game. I was Mother's bomb bitch. So I was basically walking through with ordnance, and if she told me to blow a building up or if one side held a building for longer than such and such period, I would basically blow it up, and they couldn't kill me. So I was basically the walking doom of the game director to move gameplay through the mount site. But asking about you guys, it was that, and seeing the females, it was basically, and I don't mean this in a sexist way. You guys played the game like a male and enjoyed it on the same level as men do. And the men respected you guys because y'all did not ask for any special favors. It was treat me just like you do anybody else. And I think that's what allowed all of you. I find it offending for someone to tell me that they're not going to shoot me just because I'm a girl. I mean, don't do me any favors, because if I were me, I would shoot the shit out of me if I saw me. Right.
You know, I don't care that I'm a girl.
With that, you remember giving that award back in Georgia because it was the best most valuable female player, and it was a step down from the most valuable player, and you gave it back to him and told him you didn't want it.
Well, I didn't really give it back to him. I told him I just thought it wasn't cool to – I knew what they were trying to do. They had guns that they were going to give to the female scenario player and the young gun and all that stuff. But still, you know, it felt like, okay, I'm not good enough to be the most valuable player, and you've made a category for women, so, you know, pick of the litter, still a dog, and I didn't want to be a dog. So it just kind of put a rock in my craw, I guess, because it just felt like, really, that's what this is? I'm not good enough to be the most valuable player.
Right.
And, it was just a little insulting to me, but I understood what they were trying to do, and I didn't really want the gun they were giving away anyway, so it's all right.
Right. Well, I mean, so your very first scenario game, I just wanted people to understand that when you hit the scenario scene, and this is, you know, I didn't know you. I had not played in Texas. I mean, you were established in Texas before you and I ever really started talking or hanging out or anything. But I want people to understand that you didn't become Nudi after hanging out with me, which is what a lot of people thought. This discussion we've had earlier about, you know, I did it online where I was talking to people about personas and personalities. You know, you're Nudi whether you're on the paintball field or not. Just like I'm TB whether I'm on the paintball field or not. It's not a hat or a mask that we put on and pretend to be, and then when we're not here or we're not in front of people, we're somebody else. So,
and, you know, the interesting thing about that is after Mother Diane Howe told me one time that you're not anybody in paintball until they roast you on War Pig. And for those of you who know what War Pig is, you know what I'm talking about. And for those of you who don't, you didn't really miss much. But, you know, it was, at the time, it was the global scenario paintball forum or boards. And so, you know, it was definitely a different world back then. But the first scenario game that I actually played in, because I already told you that my team started playing in 2000, and I had to go to school. I didn't play until February of 2001, and I actually played hooky from school to go to it because I was getting pissed that they were going and playing without me and coming back with all these awesome stories of what they did and, you know, how much fun they had and about the Friday night parties and, you know, all the people they
did. And then rec ball
so
just kind of lost all luster then, right?
Well, at this point, we're still playing rec ball a lot. But we're branching out. This is the DOP branching out, the BOP branching out, the scenario teams. This is also probably, I guess, about 6 months later, we started playing tournament speedball. And incidentally, the same thing that got us started in Viper Games got us started in that as well, and I'll get into that in a second. But
right, because you actually played back player for the tournament team, right?
Well, I played on a 3-man speedball team, and I think we took second or third in the first tournament we played in, but.
So what you're saying is that you can gun.
I think most people would tell you that knew me that I'm not afraid to use my paintball marker on the field, and I'm pretty damn accurate with it.
And before you started hanging out with me, what gun were you known for?
Oh,
it reminds me of. Well,
it
reminds me of the Ford Fairlane movie where they talk about the guitar that was slung upside down, specific for Jimi Hendrix because he's a lefty, and most people may not realize that you're a lefty. So you have a custom.
I'm as left-handed as the day is long.
Right, and so you have a custom left-hand made auto mini cocker that's
Right.
nickel plated?
Well, it's somewhere. I think I still have it somewhere. I don't remember selling it.
No, it's in.
I
I know where it
sold.
is. It's in your closet in the guest room with Warren's
No,
Angel.
the game that the marker that I started scenario with was Tippmann Model 98, and I had it was a chameleon
Wednesday
fade
Tippy?
Tippmann,
Right.
and it was known in the world as the Wednesday Tippy. And if you wanted to know what that meant, and this is how it got explained. It wasn't the Tippmann gun that they made on Monday when everyone's hungover from the weekend. And it wasn't the gun that they made on Friday when they're cutting corners and trying to get out of work early. It's the gun they made on Wednesday when they were in the groove of their work week and they were making some mighty fine damn guns. Because
Right.
I swear to God, I could have picked up a rock, a turd, an oblong paintball, it didn't matter, and I could put it through that gun with an accuracy that scared people. And it was the Wednesday Tippy. That's what everybody called it. And so remind me about that when we talk about blanding. Again, remind me about the Wednesday Tippy.
Okay.
Now, anyone that knows my husband Warren or Bio knows that his personal motto is that accessories make the man.
Right.
And so I'm rocking my Tippy Model 98, and he is shooting a Warp Sports Dark Angel. So at the time, and so he had the high-end paintball guns, and I had not the low end, because when you talk about the gun that I started playing rec ball with, I had a Brass Eagle Raptor, and I loved it too. But
Right.
I think I got it on sale at Walmart for $15, and I shot that gun for probably 4 years before I got the Wednesday Tippy. And it was the most tripped out Brass Eagle Raptor you would have ever seen. It had a double trigger. It had a custom paint job. I mean, it was awesome for a $15
Right.
gun.
Well, that's because, y'all did, back then a lot of people did mods and all that stuff on it. I mean, a lot of people, I'm going to have styles on later from Atomic Ordnance, and, a lot of people don't realize that the big boy grenade that they use, y'all have a story in that.
Yeah, as you remind me of all this stuff, I'm like, okay, well, maybe there is a lot of my story that people don't know.
I'm just saying. I mean, that most people don't realize that the big boy grenade from Tippmann, that Tippmann makes, because Styles sold it to...
Because they bought Styles' company.
Well, Styles sold it to Hooyah, the guy who wanted to be the cook for Blitzkrieg, and then he sold it to Tippmann. Huh?
Kahuna.
Yeah. And then he sold it to Tippmann.
Marauders.
And Tippmann then, of course, sold it to Key, and Key then sold it to GI Sports. So the big boy grenade that everybody's running around, they're selling millions of, might not be there if not for DOP. So tell that story.
Because that started when we started playing Scenario. We met Styles actually at Blanding. But back to me getting into Scenario, like I said, it was 2001, and I was playing hooky. And so it was Viper Shadow Wars. That was my first time to play Scenario, my first time to role play, and I was hooked. Now, our team captain was the commander of that game, Bald Eagle, and he, I didn't know it at the time. This was before we started really seriously tracking missions or points or who was winning, but we were beating the crap out of them pretty well, apparently. And so I'm role-playing for a nuke, and it's obvious that the person I'm role-playing on the other side who's trying to petition Viper staph infection for this nuke is like, well, I want the nuke because we're going to use it. And I go through this whole spiel about how he doesn't need the nuke because he is going to use it. It's kind of like the broken arrow thing. I'm not scared of the man who wants 12. I'm scared of the man who only wants one.
Right.
And, that we wouldn't use it. that I was protecting the world, and I went off all on this role-playing thing, and it was so obvious that the people I was role-playing for, which at the time was Carl Wolf or Dragon, and I think Indy was there that game with Staph Infection.
Right.
I don't think Emmett was. I don't really remember who all was
real
there.
quick, let's put that on hold. Staph infection, you got to explain what staph infection it was, because most people don't have a clue. I mean, even the people from our day that that didn't play Viper games. I mean, staph infection was his writers, or basically his hidden third faction
group that did the bidding of the game director.
Right. So his hidden third faction.
Yeah, it was a hidden third faction, but they were responsible for all the role playing and getting the storyline to move along. And in this particular case, Dragon was in charge of the role playing. And
right,
so
because there
used
to be two things that were important. One was the game. You had the actual paintball game that was going on, eliminations, capture whole points, even running the missions, and then there was a storyline. And in this particular game, in the Shadow Wars game, it was a continuous storyline. So somebody at one of these other shows were talking.
Right.
Well,
the storyline
y'all actually didn't
play.
You played the same character.
There were 6 games in the Shadow Wars series. They were at different fields, and you played the same character. And the more games you played, the more experienced your character became, and you got to do more cool things from game to game to game.
Right.
So,
you actually upgraded. So you started out as just a medic, and you could medic somebody by your 3rd or 4th game, depending on how you experienced up. And this isn't like normal. You weren't even a named role character. You were just a medic. Medic 1, you had a name and all of that, but
Correct.
it was just you were just
Joe
Medic.
However many medic cards, and they distributed them however. But if you were part of the
at that
elite,
level, they could power up to where by the 5th or 6th game, you could medic, or you could specialize in 2 different things. You could be a sniper medic or an intelligence medic, and you could heal headshots. I mean, you had limited headshot healing abilities.
I played 6 games, and our DOP played all 6 games of the Shadow Wars. By the time I got to the 6th game, my card said that I was a super medic demo engineer. I was a multi-class, and my cards, it really said, you are a god on the field. You could heal headshots. That's how advanced my medic ability was. And I'm a nurse in the real world. Why would I not be a medic the first time I played?
Right.
So.
But that was also, that card was written specifically for you, and that's something people got to understand, is that there used to be a time when in any social grouping of people, the more charismatic people are going to rise to the top. And there used to be a time where those people had their own kind of hidden game with each other, with the game directors. It was constantly this one-upsmanship or hidden chess game that so many people didn't see. And you had people that came up through that club later. So, you got kind of brought into it, the little hidden cabal of being able to see through the matrix, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I didn't know about all that, because Viper had already been having Viper games for several years.
Right, but you were that way with Viper is my point, is that Viper knew who you were.
That was the first time I met Viper. That was the first time I met Viper.
But by the 6th game, he was quite impressed with you.
Oh, well, by that time we're also doing first aid for him, and I'm helping him with props and of things of that nature, because and back to the safety aspect of it, we can never get away from it. Carrie knew that our team was healthcare people, and there was an injury the first game that I played at. I don't even remember what the injury was or who it was, but Carrie knew that I was a nurse because Daryl had, my team captain, had told him I was a nurse, and so he sent this person to me hoping that I could help him. And, of course, I could because, an ER nurse, I always had a jump bag with me, and I had a first aid kit for our people always. And so I was helping him out, and then, well, much like the Army guys, he told 2 friends and so on, and then the next thing I know, that entire game, people come up and they've got a scratch. Hey, you got something I can clean this with? Or, I cut myself. Do you have a steri strip or a Band-Aid? It was like word spread like wildfire there's somebody here who can help heal us. So I bet I saw a dozen people that game, and I went, oh, my God, is there really this big of a need for first aid in scenario? I had no idea. It was my first game. And so I had I approached Kerry after the game and said, asked him, I said, did you send that person to me? And he said, yeah, I did. I hope you didn't mind. I said, no, of course not. I'm going to do anything that I can to help. I said, but did you send X, Y, and Z? And he went, no. And I went, well, if this is going to be an all-the-time thing, what do you think about the idea of me setting up a first aid tent? Because I don't have enough stuff to take care of all these people on this scale if this is going to be every game. And I said, and we're very safety-oriented, and he did know a little bit about our background. And so we actually were able to work out a deal with Kerry where we could get 2 people comped into the game as long as we would set up first aid tents for him. And, that's
but y'all
kind of
ran
a novel
actual
thing
first
for his
aid.
games.
I mean, right, but y'all ran an actual military-style first aid thing.
Well, what became out of that is that even the people who weren't like direct healthcare providers, they all went and took first aid classes and CPR classes, and so that they could help out in the first aid tent, because Kerry was able to go to fields that maybe he probably might have had to fight to get into by selling them on the fact that I'm bringing a first aid team.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about, that part of the liability. I've got that covered. And so
and they're all certified professionals
as the
that do this
team.
Right. Which is what y'all did at Blanding. I mean, that was a big portion of how MXS got in.
Thing.
Right. Right, but what I'm saying is that Viper actually introduced y'all to MXS.
Absolutely. Because
to do the games at Blanding.
That very next year, MXS, who I'd never met and never played any of their games, because they were kind of, east of the Mississippi, and Kerry was kind of west of it. They were going to have this big game at Camp Blanding in Stark, Florida, which is a multi-million-dollar mount site, and it was going to be in
Viper was the commander.
Right.
He was the commander from Texas, and so you guys all rented a
we
bus.
Were I mean,
had the whole
we
thing.
Were going to supporting. We were going. It was a big ordeal. I mean, there were so many teams from Texas that followed Kerry down there when he generaled that game. But, as a game producer, MXS is trying to solve the problems to make sure that if they get into the mount site, that they can come back, that nothing bad happens. And here you are in landlocked Florida in June, and so they're talking to Kerry about, about there not being a whole lot of sources of water at the mount site. They had potable water. That was about it, and it's 113 degrees in Florida in June. And so he says, well, hey, let me introduce you to this team that comes and sets up first aid booths at my games. And maybe, if you help them with, either entry or paint or something, I can get them to come from Texas and they can set up a first aid tent for you. And so I didn't know Kerry was doing this. The next thing I know, I get a phone call from Diane and Patrick who said, hey, we've heard a lot about you. We'd love to have you come down to this game and set up a first aid tent for us. And it's like, okay, that's 1,200 miles away. If it's a 24-hour game, I'm going to need at least 12 people to go, and I don't know if I can get 12 people that can commit to this game and do first aid. So they said, well, we'll comp every member of your team, and we'll give everybody a case of paint. And it's like, okay, now it's a little more incentive. But then again, I'm having to staff a first aid tent around the clock, so I've got to have two people that are off the field at all times doing first aid. Luckily for us, and luckily for MXS and Blanding and the 600 or so people that were there, during all this first aid stuff, we got actually sponsored by Coca-Cola, and they gave us gallons and gallons of Gatorade. And so part of our first aid kit, or Powerade, whatever the Coke product was, I guess it's Powerade. No, it wasn't. It was Gatorade, because the distributor in Sulphur Springs actually sold Gatorade products too.
Right.
So they would
And
send
the
us
truth
these
is,
big
there were a lot of people that if you guys had not been there, well, it would
don't
have been
beat me to
serious.
my punchline, Mr. Man.
Okay.
Well, we brought our big coolers and water, and so we mixed Gatorade, not having any idea. I'd never been to Florida before in my life, and we set up our big first aid tent, and I've got supplies. I'm hoping that'll cover 600 people if something bad happens, and then the worst started happening. People started going down left and right because of the heat.
Because it was magnified, because there's nothing out there but gray concrete.
Right,
so,
right.
So while it was 100 degrees already in that city,
in the shade.
Right, and in the city
someone
it was
had
even
a thermometer,
hotter.
And they said it was 113 degrees in the shade, and so we're having to hump people out of the mount site. We're having to hump people out of the camp. If anyone has ever played blending, and I think every game that's been there has done it the same way, they stage all of one team on one side, and then they stage all of the other team in the other side, and so they're not really close together. It's probably half a mile in between where these people are camped, and so I've got people running into the first aid tent saying, "You got to come help me. Someone has collapsed in the camping area," and so I'm having to hump all the way to the other side to get people out. And we had giant misting fans and Gatorade and water, and I mean, I bet we saw. Well, I had a notebook because, but that's another story. Because I started when we set up the first aid kits. I started keeping statistics on the kinds of injuries and things that I saw, because that's what led me to know what kind of things I needed to bring. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I would do. It would become some of my graduate research project. Would be the statistics that I kept in scenario paintball.
And also the
bet
column that you wrote in
1/3.
Scenario News.
Right. I bet I saw 1/3 of the 600 people. I bet we saw 200 people through the first aid tent for either, they were hot, they were close to heat exhaustion, but heat fatigue. But I can say this: not one person had to leave and go to the hospital for heat exhaustion, and I think that was because we had the misting fans, and most people lived under those misting fans with us in our first aid tent if they weren't either podding up paint or on the field.
Oh yeah.
So that was.
I mean, it was so hot. I can remember Patrick, because I was on staff, so I was able to be in the air conditioned building, and I mean, if you remember, Patrick actually had to have armed guards guarding the door to keep people out.
Well,
because there were people constantly trying to figure some kind of way to get in that AC. And, I mean, it eventually got to where I didn't even want to go in it because it was miserable. It was miserable to go in and out. You know what I'm saying? When you were in there, yeah, it felt all right. But then it seemed like it made the heat even worse because it reversed your ability to acclimate. You know what I'm saying?
Well, all I know is that we had 3 giant misting fans, and because there was potable water there, we were able to run it through the misting fans, and that was probably the only thing that kept people from just dying of heat. So that was an adventure. That really was. I don't think I've ever been that hot in a paintball game in my life, and I learned something, having never been to Florida before, because we came and we set up our tent on Friday night, and we were so hot and sweaty. We had just driven 18 solid hours from Texas, and we wanted to cool off somewhere, and so we drove to San Augustine and said, we're going to hop in the ocean. Well, it's dark, and we were the only ones in the ocean, and everybody was standing on the beach watching us, and that was the same weekend that they had a shark attack on the other side of the peninsula of Florida.
Right.
But we didn't know that. We just knew we were hot and we needed to cool down, and we're just lucky we didn't get attacked by sharks, I guess.
Right. No doubt. No doubt. So that last Shadow Wars game was
That's when I
the
met
second
you.
time. Yes. Well, for the second time, because you don't remember me for the first time you met me, which was at what's now, Forney Paintball. Because remember, Patrick brought me up.
That was the last Shadow Wars game. That was the last Shadow Wars game.
Well, that was the fifth game. That was the 5th game because that was how I got
right.
all the money.
It was Twilight Zone. Yeah, you're
Because
right.
they threw all the money.
You at the second of the last.
Right. Where you were one of the wheeler dealers, and I was a nobody. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew who I was in Texas. My little history had already been done, but you had heard something about me. And
no, I hadn't.
That was the game that I basically ran as Patrick's shadow.
Yes, that was the game in which I jacked Patrick, and you wanted to shoot me, and Patrick wouldn't let you.
Right.
But I didn't know who you were. I did not have a clue who you were. You were just with Patrick. But I knew Patrick told me who he was. Oh, right. Patrick from MXS is coming to play this game, and blah, blah, blah.
And Blitzkrieg. You heard about Blitzkrieg because that was Viper's team still. Or Viper had just left the team, basically. But y'all still knew who Blitzkrieg was. And the history behind that team.
You know, I heard the name, but it didn't mean anything to me. No, Blitzkrieg's history in Texas had yet to be written. So, it was just another team name.
Well,
you could have told me any team name, and it wouldn't have mattered to me. I was too new to the scenario game for it to have meant anything.
Right. Well,
but yes, that's the game that I sort of kind of met you at, and that's how it was that.
Well, you saw me digging in the trash can, getting all the money because y'all had made fake money.
No, that was at the end of the game. So we still didn't really talk or meet. I just knew who you were then. Yeah, that because of the involvement of characters, our team had printed just tons and tons of fake money. And once they busted it as fake money, well, we just dumped it in the trash, and that's when you dug it out of the trash and put it back into play in the next game. And so that's when I saw you, was digging our shit out of the trash.
Well, yeah. Well, that game, the game that you and I really interacted, is the game
Twilight
that I stole
Zone.
Viper's third faction.
Yes, Twilight Zone.
The first time I think a player has ever hijacked the third faction from the game director.
That's the game that it all started, I guess, falling into place. Then I knew who Blitzkrieg was, and that's the game that Patrick and Diane came out to play, and that they brought several members of Blitzkrieg with them. And so I got to meet a lot of Blitzkrieg that I don't, that's the first time I'd heard of them. Yes,
and that was Bobby Goglin. Yep, he played with us that game.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so they pulled the big RV up, and it was, they knew people like the Dog Den of San Antonio area, and so they were like, oh, just all up, talking to them because they'd been friends forever, and so it was that was when it all started falling into place of me knowing the who's who in scenario, at least in my little isolated area of the world, which was Texas and Kansas.
Right.
I stayed in Kansas because of the Shadow Wars, but it was basically just Viper games, and it was very localized.
Right. And so after that game, you played your first MXS game, which was the Wizards game at Paintball, Arkansas, which... Yes,
it was.
Which was the first game you and I played together. Together.
Yes.
We went to the game, we staged together, we actually played on the field. However, the game was, what was the game, you remember? Wizards was about?
Wizards. It was Wizards.
The movie Wizards.
It was a cartoon.
Right.
It was a cartoon, and I actually went
about
and
two brothers. Right. And you played for Wiz from the Brotherhood.
Correct.
And there was Silly String that you could spray on people and make them do shit.
Yeah. It was a role-play intensive game, to be sure.
And there was Frisbees that you could throw.
Yes, that worked
and kill things.
Nerf footballs. They were bombs, more or less, but yeah, they were Frisbees that you can throw. And
about this time,
wild.
So at that game you decided, or your character was the female character from the cartoon, and you were demo tech, so you had all the cool demo bomb boom shit.
Actually, that was probably one of the last games that MXS lets you multi-class, because I have a picture from that game in which I'm wearing demo engineering medic tape.
Right.
So yeah.
So
and it was
that was the
miserable.
game.
It rained the entire time.
Right.
Miserable,
That was the game
muddy,
that I had my night
field.
vision. So you remember that story? Remember what
Yes.
story I'm getting to, where we had each gotten silly stringed?
Right. Well, your character, if we didn't keep you under control, you were going to revert back to your evil side. So you were technically playing for the other side, but if I kept you silly stringed every hour, you had to play for us. And that was my
what
job.
did Wiz
My
call
general told me to keep you silly stringed and from messing up his game. And so you had to stay with me, and you hated it. You wanted to go mess people up, and I wouldn't let you. And
yeah, y'all called it TV time.
You were looking for every way you could to get away from me and go wreak havoc in that game. And 5 minutes before every hour, you got hit with Nudi silly string, and you cursed under your breath and then stomped off with me.
Yep. Exactly.
But then something bad happened.
Yeah.
The night game portion started, and part of the storyline was if these flares went up into the night, it would break my silly string spell, and then you could revert back to your side. If I had been captured, and at some point I was by the other side, it would work the same for me, that it didn't matter if I was silly stringed or not. Once these flares went up into the sky, the spell would be reversed, and then I would revert back to my original team. And so I'll never forget it, because you heard Patrick fire the first flare. You heard Pac-Man fire it, and it was a dud. And it was watching you. You could tell you got all happy and was about to get excited, and then it didn't. There was no light. You heard it,
yeah.
and it was like you just dropped your head all dejected. I remember laughing about that. And then I guess Patrick realized the light didn't go off, because then he fired another one, and it actually exploded into the sky and had a light, and then the evil was unleashed.
On both sides.
And I wasn't around at the time, because I had gone off on a mission, so I wasn't there to silly string you back.
Right.
And that was the last I saw of you until game stand down.
Well, yeah, I stayed the fuck away from you. No, you saw me at the end. It wasn't game stand down.
Before the game stood down that evening, because that was still just Saturday night.
Right. So Sunday morning, or it's like all the scenario games were, whoever had night vision or had better night vision or had people with more experience with night vision or whatever it was, normally the night game evened things out. So Sunday was always a mad dash. So, everybody's doing everything. Everybody's trying to get these props. And Diane had the final, the role players all had what was called dance cards, where every hour.
Are you really going to not tell the story about Red Dog almost pissing on you because
no,
you were at
I'm
their
not going
base?
to tell that story. Look,
oh, come on.
I'm not going to tell the story of me sticking a gun barrel up that man's.
You were there.
Right, because I'm laying in the mud with night vision because I want to kill Wiz, and Red Dog comes out and unzips, and I swear to God he's about to piss on me, and I stick my gun up behind his ball sack, and I said, dude, if you piss on me, I'm gonna hurt you. And he went real high and went, please don't shoot me in the nuts, TB. And I went, well, then just move on down the road and go piss somewhere else, and then just walk off the field, man. So, yeah, he almost pissed on me, but he didn't.
Well, wasn't he the same one that was talking shit about you, though, back at the base? And you didn't realize you were under the stairs?
That I was under the stairs listening to him, talking about what a dick TB was, and then I started talking about what a dick and what an ass, and he didn't even recognize my voice until I stepped out from under the stairs, and Warhawk was like, the whole time he was sitting there telling him, trying to, without saying it, going, dude, that's TB, because I mean, yeah, he was talking all kinds of crazy shit, and I was just feeding him more, as I've been known to do from time to time when people don't know it's me. So,
well, at some point while all that was going on, I ended up getting myself captured on a mission because somebody came with some silly string and they silly stringed me. And so as the game stood down, I was actually playing for Warhawk, or at least captured by Warhawk, and had to go out on missions with him.
Right. Until all the characters had to meet in the middle and fight for a prop.
Yes, and last man standing wins.
Yes, you like to say
said.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a man standing. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, no. No, because when it was all said and done, it was me versus 4 of y'all, and then I took 3 of you out, and it was you and me. And we rules lawyered each other, and I lost.
Oh no, there was no rules lawyer in there. That's what you said was, how was I supposed to know she was a fucking Frisbee champion?
Exactly, because you threw that. Yeah, nobody had been hitting shit the whole game, and then all of a sudden, I'm sitting there. I don't have anything to kill you with. I'm trying to get to the prop. You let this Frisbee go, and the shit just was in slow motion, and I'm just like, fuck, that's going to kill me. And I turn and start trying to run off, and it lands, and you're going, stop. No. 3 more steps. Back up. 3 more steps. That shit hit the ground. 3 more steps, TB. Bring your ass back.
Yeah, but
and I was like, no. And you're like, no, give me my 3 steps.
Okay, go ahead. I've got 3 more Frisbees. What you want to do?
Exactly. And so I just said, no, I'm good. So you called me out and punked me out in the game.
No, I was playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you got punked out or not, that's how you feel. That's not what I did. I just played the game, dude.
Well, I think people will vastly.
I am not responsible for your feelings.
Let's move into the next game.
Then obviously you were punked out, but that was not my intention. My intention was to win.
Okay.
So
then let's move into the next game, since we're going to talk about intentions. So the next game, Wiz, who you played for.
I don't really, just for the record, I don't want to talk about this next game.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, why not? This was your crowning moment.
No, it was not my crowning moment.
Yeah, sure. So you were Mother Nature.
You tell the story.
You were Mother Nature. The game was, what was it, the Christmas that never was.
You actually weren't going to Fandango next. Okay, we can talk about this game.
No, I wasn't. I was going to talk about the game that you were on top because you were Mother Nature.
What was the name of that game? What was the name of that game?
The Christmas that never was. It was the Heat Miser
versus... The Christmas that never was.
Because Choctaw was the dog.
Yeah.
And Clay was the Grinch.
Oh, the Christmas that almost wasn't.
And he mixed other stuff in. But, you were Mother Nature. So your character, you were your own third faction. Because you were Mother Nature. And so you could be invisible when you wanted to be invisible. You could make someone else invisible.
From any point on the field.
Right. And then you had this nasty little lightning bolt that did what? Killed specifically who you wanted to kill. Not even within a radius.
I called them out by name and they were dead.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Right. So your husband and I were playing the game on a side.
Yes, and my husband is a shooter.
Yes.
He doesn't like the magic tree scenario role playing shit. He is a shooter.
Right. He likes to shoot people a lot. So we shot people a lot. Like we dropped the castle on the other side like 3 or 4 times. And so I think you started fucking with us just to try to make the game fair, which is what you were supposed to do.
Correct.
I like to think that. I don't know. Because Warren and I are standing amongst a group of people.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Warren and I are standing amongst a group of people, about 50 people, and we see you get out of a vehicle and start walking toward us. And I see you pull that lightning bolt out. And I said, Warren, she's going to kill us. I said, Warren, she's going to kill us. And he went, no, she ain't going to do that. He goes, she may kill everybody, but she ain't going to kill us. I was like, dude, she's coming to fucking kill us.
Yeah, because at
like,
that point, everyone figured out what I was doing, and if they saw me coming, people just started casually, like, don't panic, but let's just move away from her.
Right, and we didn't because we were tired. Yeah, because we were tired. We've been running the other side of the field. And you walk up, and you put that lightning bolt down between us and told us, and I quote, "Get the fuck off my field, bitch."
Oh, no, there's no way I said that to my husband.
Oh.
There's no way.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way I said, get the fuck off my field, bitch. I would never.
Yeah. Yeah, because before that, when you were out there doing your magic tree shit, he was shooting at you, talking shit.
Oh, yeah, I did say that. It was because he was shooting at me.
Uh-huh. And me, you were just antagonizing.
Well, you were the TB.
Exactly. So yeah, you came out, and out of 50 people, you killed me and Warren. And said that in front of everybody.
Well, they all moved. Everybody else moved, but y'all. I wasn't going to chase them.
Right. So then we go to dinner that night, and we're sitting in front of all the who's who of Texas scenario paintball. All your little friends, all these people who know who I am and know the shit that I do and pull in the games, and I'm this guy that nobody can beat or pull one over on. And they're telling TB stories of various different things. And in dinner, you stand up and say, I don't know why y'all keep thinking that TB is all this. I make him my bitch whenever I want.
Yeah,
I've done it the last 3 games.
And spoiler alert, I rue the day I said those words.
Oh, whatever.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, no, but I mean, this tells into the story because the whole thing is that set up a game that really required a whole lot of moving pieces to be put together. And if he felt like I punked him out the game before that, when I said that to all those people, I might as well have signed my own death certificate for the next game. Well, the next game, right?
And I would have done the same thing had it been me.
Yeah, the next game was Fandango, based on the video game Fandango. And if anybody knows the research of it, the entire game, or the entire purpose of the video game, which you even went out and bought so that you could play and learn everything about it.
I played the video game because I'd never heard of it before. And I don't play video games, so.
Right. And I wrote the storyline. I wrote all the player cards. I did not write the Mission Master, and that was because MXS, that was what a lot of people didn't understand, is at the time, a lot of people thought about, they did games like they do now where they were wrote down on cards, where MXS, everything was dynamic. Everything was based off, right, what was going on the field. So I knew everything about the game.
It's based on the Mexican Day of the Dead.
Right, and the video game.
You're trying to get to heaven.
Other people are.
It's based off of how good you are in your life.
Right. And that's what other people are doing. So other people are getting on the train, and other people are getting tickets, these golden tickets, based on what they did in life, or in purgatory where they are, deals they can make with certain people to get tickets.
Right.
And the video game, right, but the video game was specific about her getting on the train.
Right, and she was a good soul. She was destined to go to heaven.
Correct.
And but there were forces to keep her out of heaven and off the train, both in the video game and in the scenario game.
Right. So that was my character. My character's entire goal was to keep you off the train. A task that you felt was not going to be easy for me to accomplish, because by then everyone knew who you were. You were, as Viper called it, the darling of Texas scenario paintball.
Yes, that's a phrase that Carrie had had put out there about me.
Right. So you knew everybody in Texas wanted to wheel and deal with you. You know, if they didn't, they feared what you would do because you had your own reputation in Texas, and you were coming off of this game where, you know, you had punked me out and you were like, hell yeah, I got this, dude. I can take TV whenever I want. Because that's important.
Yeah, I really
you
thought
know
I knew what I was doing.
Right. Because that hubris is what, you know, eventually is what made everything work. But, I mean, that was where you met teams
spoiler alert, I rue the day that I said what I said to the TB.
Not really.
At dinner after the game.
Not really. Because the truth of the matter is that's really what gave me the respect for you, to where I said, look, I don't want to – if we continue down this road, it's just going to be bad. It's just going to be mutually assured destruction. So, because it was always going to be a one-up.
Let's just say that I learned a lot at Fandango, a whole lot. And I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went, or how long that you planned on, or how long you dug that rabbit hole. And so that
you mean
was
after you went to the game director
into the limitations of my scenario skills.
Right. Because not even your team captain would give you a golden ticket.
No, you had talk about making deals with the devil. I mean, everybody around me had made a deal with you because you had them convinced that they were going to lose if I got on the train.
Because that was what the game was about. It was all about you. And that started Friday night. Because,
yes, it did.
See, paintball now, everybody's like, they took what the model was, which was party Friday night, and then Saturday play paintball and enjoy that and enjoy playing at night and getting out in the woods and then, you know, sneaking and dropping each other's bases and shit like that. And then Sunday, and then you drank and partied after the game. Now they've shortened the game so much, and everything's like party Friday night, party Saturday night, party Sunday night, and play 3-4 hours.
Yeah,
and they don't realize, but because it was not like that,
model.
right? But because it was not like that, Friday night parties, especially at Viper games, was a big deal. Everybody brought food.
Was,
I mean, Odyssey was known for the boudin and the.
You might be late for the game on Saturday, but you weren't late for the Friday night party. You just weren't.
Because everybody was drinking and hanging out. I mean, it was family friendly. Even after the kids went to bed, you know, it got a little risque, but nothing major. But because everybody knew each other and hung out, and you know, that was the real release. Even people that were going to be on opposite sides or rivals, or you know, didn't necessarily care for each other, Friday night was still a Friday night party. Everybody got together, hung out.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, in the Viper Circle, Friday night meant that Ken Prejean Ninja from Team Odyssey was going to bring some gumbo and some hoghead cheese, and you know, you got in line to get that, and you know, it was a giant potluck, and you just went from camp to camp, just basking in the ambiance and the different, because every team has their own culture. So you know, you might go to the next team camp and it's barbecue, or and like DOP did poppers with chicken wrapped with jalapenos and you know.
And what were you known for?
I was known for nudie berries, and they were vodka or rum, usually rum, infused strawberries that I would make people more or less beg me for, and it was like a running joke. And that's all there is to say about that. It was just part of the Friday night party. So
right, and that ties into how you got your call sign, I think, because you were known for certain things on Friday night party. So you tell as much as you want to tell, because it's your story. I certainly learned that from you when you swore me to secrecy on a lot of this shit with that phrase. You know, I'm telling you this, but it's not your story to tell. You can introduce it to somebody, and I'll tell as much as I want to tell them. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I will let you tell your call sign as comfortable as you feel telling it.
Well, Nudi is short for Nudi Berry. And of course, my name is Barry. My nickname is Bear, so it's Nudi Bear. And the Nudi part came from how I my occupation that I had when I was putting myself through nursing school, which was as a what's a PC phrase for it now?
Exotic dancer?
An erotic entertainer.
Lady of the pole?
Single mom? I don't know. No, that wasn't it. Yeah, I was a stripper.
Right.
Because it paid well. And so
you're good at it for sure. And
well,
that played into your Friday night, how you were known for giving nudie berries.
Well, I mean, it was the darling of Texas paintball was one thing I got called. The biggest flirt in paintball was another, because Friday night was all about laughing and having fun and flirting, but come Saturday I was strictly business. And
right.
A lot of people found that out the hard way.
Right, because one of the coolest thing about women, and the reason why my daughter is as good as she is, because she learned from you this part and these portions and this kind of stuff, is when you can play the damsel in distress and it's just an act. Or you can lead guys on by their junk, or make them think that, put out a little cleavage, and now all of a sudden you're like, can I get that mission card? Or, hey, ref,
well,
I know I was 5 minutes late, but can you hook me up?
Any paintball game. Let's get that straight. Never put out any cleavage in any paintball game. But I am Southern by birth, and so I have a tendency to kind of put it on a little thick sometimes with my darlings and my sweeties.
You didn't play in a tank top and shorts?
That's not putting my boobs out there. It was just fucking hot, dude.
I understand that, Barry, but come on, really?
Yeah, really. I can't help it. I've got big boobs. It's not my fault. It's genetics.
Right, and you're in a tank top, and they're looking.
Guess what?
You are an exotic dancer. You get paid
to know. I am not any more responsible for your feelings than I am for you staring. You make it sound like I was out there in lingerie playing. No, it was a pair of
no, you got shot. No, I am not insinuating that because trust me, you played Ouch Quit It, and we can move into that story of, you played in a tank top, but you got the shit shot of you so much that someone actually thought that you were abused.
That was after Blanding, but that was also partly because of the paint they were shooting at Blanding.
In the heat.
The mount site people were worried about the paint actually permanently marking the mount facility. So PMI had made a special formulation of paint so that it would wash off real easy. Well, it was in a really thick, hard shell, so that most of it didn't break on walls anyway. And so it could bounce off of 3 cinder block walls and hit you in the chest and still not break. And anybody that knows that if a paintball breaks and it dissipates that energy, it doesn't bruise as much as a paintball that doesn't. You're going to bruise more because there's no way to dissipate the energy. You get the full force of it. And so at Blandon, I would walk down the middle of the street drawing fire while our teams were, backdooring to get missions done. And when I came back to Texas, I looked like I had, a couple of 100 bruises all over me from head to toe. And I was walking into Walmart, and a lady walked up to me and handed me her card and said, "You don't have to take that abuse." And it was a card from the local women's battered shelter.
Right.
And I looked at her and said, "Take it. Hell, I paid for it, woman." And she just kind of looked at me and took her card back and walked off.
Right.
But but that's still not me putting my boobs out there. That's they're out there. There's nothing I can do about it. Doesn't matter if I'm in a paintball jersey or just my tacos.
But if a ref and his twin brother seem to think that they might get some action, and they sign your mission card 5 minutes early, that's okay, too.
You had to go there, didn't you? You had to go there.
You know what? Again, that's the reason why I know your secrets, and that's why I have told people, and that's why it's Viper's biggest regret is that he couldn't get you and me to command against each other, because he knows what it would be. It would be no holds fucking barred, and it would be epic, but it would destroy some fucking friendships probably.
Look, I don't know why those two brothers who happened to be refs thought that they stood a chance of hooking up with me at a paintball game, but for some reason they thought they could.
Right.
And they were willing to sign off on a mission card. And, so I didn't try to talk them out of it. It wasn't against the rules at the time.
No, because
Later,
in those days, if you could talk a ref into it, it was valid. If a ref signed it.
That's right. You couldn't argue with it. If a ref signed it, it was legit.
Right.
So, but, I would flirt even on the field, but if I was flirting with you, you probably needed to try to wonder what it was I was doing.
Right.
Because if you weren't on my team, I do solemnly swear that I was up to no good.
No doubt. So that's actually when Diane Mother Howe, which not only was a promoter, but was one of the first women paintball players and one of the first women commanders, or the first woman commander.
My hero and mentor later in paintball and teammate. So.
Yep. Yeah, that was when she took notice of you and started recruiting you for Blitzkrieg. We're going to have to move relatively quickly, because I know there may be some people want to call in, so we'll check and see. But
maybe
I'm
we'll
going
need
to
to
plan
have
on that.
part two if people are actually interested in where I went from there.
Hey, I'm down with that. I mean, but I at least got to talk about,
if they just want to hear TB and Nudi story time, maybe they'll let us know and we can do it again, because there's not enough time for us to tell my story. So I hope we've hit enough to keep people entertained.
Hey, you know what? I'm hopefully some people realize, really that there have been women in the game. There have been women at all levels of the game. This whole victim mentality that everybody's into these fucking days with, why aren't women getting this and why aren't women getting that? I mean, you guys, as dominant women, you had samples sent to you of women cut pants. But even you made the statement, there's not enough women who play. It's not a question of the companies don't want to support women. It's there's not enough women, so it's not economically feasible. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I mean, and money talks. If there's not enough people that are going to buy the product, no one's going to produce the product unless they have a personal vested interest in it. And there's not paintball companies out there that are really run by women to have that vested interest in it. So, there were a lot of good ideas.
That's willing to take the loss until the market catches up, basically, because that's what it was.
Well,
if you remember
and
smoking,
who knows if it will be.
But if you remember, smoking paintball gave you women. You have one of only 3 pair of the smoking women's pants, because Not Bob gave you a prototype pair, right?
Yeah.
And Not Bob was going to try to take the loss. I mean, he was and it eventually is. But the thing is, that's eventually what took the company down was that. I mean, that loss was so big because there were not enough women who would support that product.
Well, I can't speak to what took the company down. I mean, if you say that's what it is, it is. But I know Not Bob was willing to take a loss on it because he knew that there were women who played that would appreciate it, but the fact is that there weren't enough to make it economically feasible for him to, it's not a really good business model to lose money all the time. So it has a tendency to put you out of business, or at least, you got to straighten up and fly right at some point and stay with the things that make you money, or you just don't get to have a business anymore. And paintball is no exception to that rule.
Yeah.
So
most people may not realize this too, but I mean, I know when you and I first met, you were very, very liberal leaning, and now not so much.
Well, you can thank Dave Cilio for me recognizing what I really am.
Okay.
Because he called me a closet conservative. But the fact is that I'm a middle-aged, helping profession female, and so I do have a lot of liberal tendencies in terms of if you can help, you should. Now, I don't believe you should help people who won't help themselves. I don't believe you should help other people completely to your own detriment. And it's so I was trying to explain this to Dave, And he was like, okay, so let me ask you some questions about your other beliefs. Do you believe in capital punishment? And I went, I'm from Texas. Yeah. We execute them 2 at a time around here.
Right.
And he said, okay. And he just started asking me some questions, and he said, well, I hate to break your heart, Barry, but it sure sounds like you're a conservative, a closet conservative. I went, holy shit, you could be right.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I'm a moderate, and that's in all aspects of my life. I mean, I'll help you in any way I can, but if you won't help yourself, why do I waste my resources? There's somebody else that I can help that'll help me help them too. So
right.
So it was
however, once you came on Blitzkrieg, that kind of changed. You took on a different kind of moniker.
Well, you know, if
do you remember what it was?
A sex kitten on TV or in the real world in any aspect of your life, you have a limited shelf life. And I had fun in paintball, you know, being the friendly, hello, how are you, welcome to scenario kind of girl. But the fact is that at the end of the day, it was my money, it was my time, it was, you know, my vacation time or my air flight and you know, things like that was getting into the games all around the country. And so if I'm going to show up, I'm showing up to win. And my whole outlook changed from I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to play paintball. I'm going to make friends because that's just the person I am, but it's not my goal. It's not to make friends. I have friends. I have a lot of friends in scenario paintball. I'm here to play paintball. I'm here to beat you, but more importantly, I'm here to outdo the last time I played. I'm trying to grow as a player in the sport. And, you know, that doesn't sit well with people who just show up to party and they don't care about the score at the end of the day and blah, blah, blah. Right.
But you actually got lucky because there was a short time that you got to indulge in that you got to indulge in that play, you know, being on Blitzkrieg. And then, of course, when we moved over into Thunderstruck and that,
well, I got to be the person on Blitzkrieg that people actually liked. And that was kind of cool.
Right. You also got to be known as a woman with night vision because you had Warren's mil-spec night vision
neither
too.
Here nor there. You know,
so
they would tell
you learned how to run at night.
A nice person.
Right. That was the thing because you didn't play night at Viper games. I mean, Warren didn't play a whole lot of night play because a lot of your
we played as
your
much
guys
as the game would allow us to play given our limited resources.
Right, but not with a night vision.
All that long. You know, Viper's games didn't go all that long back because night vision hadn't been introduced a whole lot yet.
Right, but then you got on a night vision centric team.
Yes, and
with the Velociraptors.
A team of like-minded A-type individuals who are, again, spending their money traveling all across the country using vacation time, and they showed up to win, and not just win the game, but to win in every aspect of it.
Right. To basically dominate everything. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what they wanted.
To quote a former teammate, it's better to be feared than loved, and if you can't give respect, it will simply be beaten out of you.
Yeah.
I just quoted 2 teammates there, and it's not that I still wasn't the nice person, because everyone will still tell you I'm the nice person. I'm just vicious on the paintball field. Or, you know, if they really don't like TB, they'll say that TB corrupted the Nudi or, you know, whatever. But the fact is that I got to play in a way that I wasn't allowed to before, and it was liberating.
Right.
I didn't have to be the nice. Well, I didn't have to be the nice person. Like I said, and I've never been a not nice person, even on the field. But I didn't have to hide the fact that I liked to win, that I liked playing as hard as I could, that I liked making boys cry or puke in their paintball masks.
Right.
And when you say it that way, it makes it sound bad, but that's not like I went out to make people cry. It's just sometimes that happens. Again, I'm not responsible for your feelings.
Right. And that confidence is what allowed you to command respect from people who really probably didn't like women. I mean, because, again, there's a lot of women these days commanding. There's a lot of victim mentality sometimes about this is a boy sport.
Yeah, I wish I had a nickel for every time a male player told me I went easy on you because I got the drop on him and I killed him. Oh, well, I let you kill me. No, the fuck you didn't. That's what you say when your little butt's sore because the girl got you.
And you relish that. You begin to relish being the girl that got you in the role-playing part.
I wouldn't say relish it. I liked making people show their true colors because a lot of these people are the same ones. They're saying, we've got to grow the sport. It's the same people that are saying that they don't care about the scores until they lose. Or they don't care about the awards until they don't win them. You know, if they win them, they deserved it. But if you win it, it was political.
Right.
So it was more about being able to play the way that I wanted and that, well, I like to win. I remember telling someone on a paintball forum because they said, oh, my God, I can't believe you just said I'm not here to make friends. Well, I'm not. And I don't ever slack off. I don't care who I'm playing against. This is how I live my life. This is how I play Monopoly. This is how I raised my kids. I don't believe in coddling anyone. So, again, I'm not responsible for your feelings. You can either learn from it and grow, or you can sit over there and whine. But either way, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So, you know, it was...
Well, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go ahead and open it up to where... I'm going to go ahead and open it up to where other people can call in. If you want to call in, it's 646-478-4001. And as soon as you come in, I will put you on and you can talk to Barrie Nudi Reid. We're going to continue talking the story until somebody calls in. So that number again is...
you are responsible for my feelings. I'm going to feel so bad if someone doesn't call and at least says hi.
Oh, come on now. Well, like I said, this is... I'm not concerned about the content or now. I mean, because really I'm going to do this with people throughout paintball that I know and just kind of let them tell stories and just kind of get that. So it'll really be something somebody's listening to if they're just wanting to learn something. I mean, we'll see where it goes. Hell, it may not be worth anything, but at least it's out there. So,
well, and that's the interesting thing about paintball is because people got mad at me because I said what is obvious. Some of the best lessons in scenario paintball are taught through pain. That doesn't mean I'm out to hurt people. But that means if there's a surrender rule and you don't surrender and someone shoots you and it hurts, you did that to yourself, and you should learn from it.
Right.
Trust me, if you ever get gacked at point blank in the back of the head, it doesn't matter if it doesn't break. It usually hurts enough. You'll call yourself out without even checking to see if you're wearing paint. So, these are lessons that are learned in pain.
Yeah, who taught those lessons, Barrie?
I don't know who taught that, but...
No, we should talk about that because here's the thing. So rules changes and rules lawyering. I mean, we got to a point when we played, even now, Barrie, I mean, mentioning me or mentioning you, people bring up this gray area. Even though the last 2 years we fucking played, we never even stuck a toe. We actually told our side we're not doing any gray area. There's no gray area even on the side.
We didn't even bend a rule, and we still got accused of cheating and not playing the gray area and being a rules lawyer. And
right. Or buying our fucking night game.
Thinker. The reason that I've excelled so well in the scenario portion of the game is because I'm a big picture thinker and I'm an out-of-the-box thinker. I'm a creative troubleshooting type person. And so it lends a lot to scenario, the part of scenario that people love to say they hate if they're just shooters. The magic tree shit, you wouldn't have won if it wouldn't have been for the magic tree shit. There's people that probably went, oh, my God, she killed him with a Frisbee. But that's not paintball. You shouldn't be able to kill somebody unless it's with a paintball. Well, then go back to playing rec ball. Go play scenario that's more mission-oriented and doesn't have the specialized role-playing, or go play tournament. But if you're in scenario, play scenario. You don't have to be a role player, but you got to realize that role playing is going on around you, and you have to adjust to account for it. Because in the end, they can do some things that switch scores or make shooters to where they are completely non-functional, that they're they can't even affect the game. And if you have any doubts about that, ask Blue Hansy, Mr. Paintball Warrior himself of Blues Crew, who, Blues Crew mantra is we show up to shoot paint. We don't role play. We don't blah, 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 blah. And I kept him in the dead box the whole game.
All right, hold on then. Somebody just called in. Let me see who it is, okay?
Okay.
Hey, area code 843. Who's this?
Bobby G.
Oh, Bobby, hello.
Hello, sweetheart.
Thank you for being the first person to call in, even if you're the only person. You were one of my favorite people in the world.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate that. Same right back at you, girl.
Unless I think about Fandango, and then I don't like you much.
Hey, I just doing what I did. That's all. I mean,
and you know what? I'll just tell everybody the best part of that game, because we never told all the rest of that story. She finally got a golden ticket. After nobody would give her one, neither side, nothing. Everybody she went to, there were teams that were hunting her. She didn't know who she was, or she didn't know who they were. They would engage her and no one else. She finally goes to the game director, Diane, and makes the comment, "Will no man give me a ticket?" And she said, "Maybe you don't need a man." And in front of me, hands you a fucking ticket, because she knew what I was doing. She knew all the teams I'd bought off, but what she didn't know was my ace in the hole. Because nobody knew my ace in the hole. And my ace in the hole was Bobby Godwin.
The head ref.
The ultimate ref. And you came up, and it was so legit because he knew not to let you on. And it cost me 2 bottles of Chivas. Very well worth it, I must say. But if anybody wants on Bobby's good side, it's Chivas. I'm just saying.
And if you want on Nudi's bad side, it's Chivas. Because I tell you, Lawrence, my team was staying at Lawrence's house, and we were trying to get up in time to go to the paintball field. And anyone who's ever been around TV knows that he's usually one of the first people there. But this particular game, I couldn't get him to get out of bed. He wants to stop at McDonald's and get breakfast. He suddenly needs to stop and get water from Walmart. And I'm like, dude, I need to get to the game. He's like, yeah, we're going to get there. And I pulled up to the train with my ticket, and Bobby said, I'm sorry, baby girl, but the last train left 5 minutes ago. And I was so mad. Oh, my gosh.
And she begged and begged. She's like, it's me. It's Nudi. Come on, do it for me. And he's just like, I can't. And you never figured it out. That was the best part. Because I was standing there, and I turned to you, and this is what set you off on the whole thing, because I turned to you. It was the three of us on the field.
Bitch, I told you weren't getting on that train.
On that train. And then I looked at you, and I said, now, this is what's really going to get you. Figure it out. I'm like, because you remember standing up and telling everybody that I was your bitch, and you went, yeah. I went, game on. And you went, what? And I went, I'll give you a little bit to start tearing apart. Do you know those teams that you don't know? Omega Extreme, Bad Karma, one from Arizona, one from Indiana. You have no idea why they would hunt you? Yeah, I sent them after you. I'm like, you want to know why your team didn't give you a golden ticket? Why don't you go ask them? Why don't you go ask Judd? Why don't you start asking people why? I'm like, start asking why you didn't get a ticket. Ask why things didn't go the way you wanted them to. And I said, then you'll understand the game.
TV said if you got on that train, we were going to lose.
Not just that. There were also things
rumor that he had. That was a rumor that he had perpetuated, and once he got started, there was no stopping it.
Oh yeah,
I'm telling you. Oh.
And between that and me raping both sides as a reaper, I mean, nobody wanted to get on my bad side. Because
Well, I tell you, if you didn't get to play scenario paintball in the early 2000s, you just really missed something, didn't you, Bobby? I mean,
that's absolutely right. I know
you were on Joint Fury, and so you could go back to the late 80s and say that. But the fact is that the game was different because, and I think it's because society was different. And it was a special mix of players that played it then. It wasn't as mainstream, and it was just
because you'd get teams traveling from all over the country to come to a game. I mean, we did games in Florida, Georgia, and we'd have people coming from Texas or coming down from Michigan. I mean, Stiller hit a couple of games with us, I believe. So, I mean, there was people coming from everywhere. And you just don't get that today, so you don't get that cross mix of people in there. And I think that's what really gave old-time scenario its charm. Because you would meet people from everywhere.
We've talked about this, and because we've asked each other, we've debated this on why it doesn't happen that way. And TV's thoughts have been because there's too many local games now. They don't have to travel to play as many games as they have to. Way back in the day, there were 2 games a year, and you had to go to Wayne Dollick's Field to play them.
That's right.
So you had to travel, or you had to go up to EMR. And, then...
Skirmish.
Right.
Skirmish, yep.
D-Day, and then Viper had his following that played just Viper games, and MXS had their following. But the fact is that you still had to do some traveling because they weren't local producers; they were nationwide producers.
Right.
And so TB says that, and I guess I kind of agree. I guess I'm kind of making the argument for TB, is that when you don't have to travel and meet those other teams and play against people with different styles, well, you're playing the same team over and over and over. What was it? I had a boss tell me one time, if you've been at a job for 10 years, you've got 2 years experience and 8 years of doing the same thing.
Yep.
And I think that's what the problem is.
And I got to agree with that. People tend to, a lot of people that I've been seeing lately are tending to localize where they play. Like, there's just been a few teams that have stepped out recently that I know about. I know Bobby Schnabel and them, they're making trips now. They were down in Florida here not too long ago. The guys from Band of Brothers, they went out east this year. Good 7-8 hour road trip. People just don't do that anymore. Now, why? Because it basically comes down to the same old thing over and over and over and over. I mean, it's almost gotten to the point where it's if you play one, you play them all.
Well, and that's just really sad. It really is because there was so much.
Well, it's also another thing that it's in the language. I mean, y'all both know me. We've debated, and I mean, I'd like to think we're all three pretty intellectual, a lot more than people realize. I mean, we've sat and talked about the sociology of it and the groupthink and psychology and the collective mindset and all of that. And it's in the language. All you hear is grow the sport. And to them, it's no longer play the game. It's grow the sport. I told somebody that the other night because they've tried to redefine the whole E-Celeb thing and where it came from, and they don't understand it. I mean, the E-Celeb thing was coined by me and Dale Ford on WOTB, my blog, and it's not electronic celebrity, like, oh, you're a content creator. No, it's entertainment celebrity. You're in the real world. It was in Hollywood, and you're not a singer, you're not a dancer, you're not a famous person for any reason other than being famous. So you're an E-celebrity. So, like, the Jersey Shore people are Kim Kardashian, and they roll their eyes and go, exactly. That is what we're saying. You are the Kim Kardashian of paintball. You're not a player who creates content. You're a content person who pretends to be a player.
Well, but back in the day, if you wanted to be known, you had to travel. And you had to prove yourself to teams like, you had to go up and face Joint Fury, and you had to go down to Florida and face the Doom Troopers and or play Alpha Omega or Omega Extreme, whatever their name was before they became Region Rats. And before, I liked them as a Region Rats. But I hated them at Fandango. But
you got to play with Thespis just back here in May.
Oh, really?
Yep.
At the
up
game
in Sherwood
I did.
Forest.
Yep. At the game I produced.
So, TV
that was the one
me,
you were supposed to show up at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so sorry.
Miss Reid.
Well,
I had a character
and
written.
Here's the deal. We might as well address it. Why does Nudi not play paintball anymore? And I don't want to say I'm never going to play again, but that we had some things that happened in the scenario world that just really broke my heart with teams that I was on and producers that we played with, and I just don't want to go into that. But real life intervened. I now have grandbabies. And my grandbabies
so
are
I got
in
grandbabies too.
Aren't they grand? That's the reason they call them grand. But my grandbabies are in Washington State because my son's in the Navy, and in Connecticut because my daughter and son-in-law work for Electric Boat building submarines for the U.S. Navy. I cannot justify taking vacation as often as we played, because we played 10 to 12 scenario games a year as Blitzkrieg, and not go to my family.
Right.
Yeah, and then so, real life intervened, but I'd love to get back out and play again. But can I do that in the current scenario world? Will it be the same? No, that's what's got me kind of not wanting to commit.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I didn't see how badly it had gone, and this is just my own personal opinion, which means absolutely jack and shit. But
I don't.
When I played Lawrence's, okay, whatever, brother. When I went to play Lawrence's game, we were all set up to do role playing. I mean, I had guys on my team that had stepped up to take roles 3 days in advance because we couldn't get the roles filled because everybody was like, what the fuck is scenario player? I mean, I literally had to teach two of my guys what it was going to be like and how much work they had to get done before we even showed up at this game.
Oh, wow. And if you were really a hardcore scenario player, you spent months getting ready.
Barrie,
about 2.5 months for this game, yeah. I spent about 2.5 months getting ready for that game.
Right.
I mean,
Barrie,
they're just showing up to shoot.
Right. Barrie, it gets worse than that. And this is Bobby can tell you, because part of what Bobby and I are going to talk about in other talks is about game dynamics and how mechanics work, with Bobby being a producer as well as Bobby being the ultimate, me being a producer. I want to talk about the actual mechanics so people maybe can figure out how to bring that part of scenario back. Maybe they don't know how to do it. So we'll talk in the generalities of that. But Barrie, when he came in, you helped me write games. So that normally there's 4 or 5 levels in a game. There's
the game
props.
and the game and the game.
Right. Reading everybody's player cards, reading every prop card. You need to know everything in the game because there's props that somebody's not just going to give you. You have to figure out who to talk to, or what we used to say, you got to get the thing to go do the thing, and you need the thing to go talk to this person.
Back in the day, we did that. We rounded up role players and read every card that got passed out, looking for clues or trying to figure out how the storyline was going to advance. I used to have a notebook prior to the book of TV where I wrote down who the major role players were for the other side, all the major role players on our side, what their cards said they were, because you never knew if something like that was going to turn the tide in your favor.
Right.
Because you figured out the game within the game within the game.
Right. And so,
now
when
it kind of
Bobby
stopped
showed
that.
up, right, but when Bobby showed up, that was what he was expecting. Because when I spoke to Bobby and the people he talked to, that was the game I sold them. So I show up, and I had boxes of props. I spent well over $800 in props on that game. I built props. I mean, custom up from the ground up, hours built into these props to make it that way. And I couldn't put any of them into play because nobody wanted to play the scenario game. I mean, I gave.
See now.
I mean, one side didn't even
really
use
not.
the OSs. I mean, believe it or not, they didn't even use the OSs. I mean, medics. They used medics, and that was about it.
And say, I don't need these medics. I don't need these engineers. I don't need these demos.
Right. They gave them all to one team, and they had that one team run everything so that team could get the MVT. But the thing is it's like it hamstrung a side. And because Bobby showed up to be able to play and expecting that game, the game went to where one side got down. And I went, and I mean, I brought in a player and taught him how to be the Rainbow Warrior. I mean, I basically taped him up with one of every OS, and I said, I'm not going to give you anything. I said, here's
Bobby,
what I'm going to give you.
I have to ask you this. Coming back, I mean, since the game was young, the author of the Joint Fury Manifestos, which I know that's going to come out in your history, but you can't tell me that didn't break your heart to see how far the game has digressed.
Well, I tell you what broke my heart more was the people that came there on my team that were expecting to role play. Right. And didn't get the opportunity to do it. They didn't get to experience that level of the game. Chuck No brought Patty's grandson over to meet me at one point in the game. I had passed off a coin and said, if anybody wants to have an audience with me, show this coin. They'll guarantee you safe passage to me. And Chuck No hoisted up Patty's grandson. They had the coin. They came over. We had our little tete-a-tete there in the office. I gave him some stuff that he could take back, give to them whatever they were going to do with it, and told him, here, take the coin too, because if you ever need to speak to me again, this is the only way you'll get to me. And that was the extent of my role-playing the entire game.
Oh, man.
One interaction, and that was it.
Yeah. It gets even worse, Barry.
How can we even call it scenario if there's no scenario part of it?
Right. Because here's the thing. It got to the point, Barry, that I actually had to scrap the pre-written missions because the missions were written rather than having dance cards. The missions were written to force the role players to interact with the paintball players. And because I couldn't get the whole role-playing thing going, I actually had to scrap the entire mission master and do everything on the fly, like MXS used to do, where I'm actually having to call in missions and have them decode them. Then I get to a point where I can't even. Right, but then I had to dumb it down even more because then I couldn't even call them in encoded. I had to get them in uncoded. And I mean, there was just constant arguing over the rules, and it's like, no, it's rules as written. You know what that means, okay? And that means, and they're right. I mean, rules as written brings about an argumentative thing. Somebody's talking, in the Care Bears group about, did you play Dungeons and Dragons? Because scenario paintball does have that aspect of it. When we talk about the history of the game,
but I wouldn't.
Why.
I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and I think the people that do would probably be offended if I called them nerds, but that's kind of how I look at them sometimes.
Well, I played.
I'll tell you flat up. And
well,
I think
you're a nerd, dude.
You're a nerd.
I know.
But
proudly.
I don't say that in a derogatory way because I look at scenario in a different way, and I look at it as it's a write your own adventure book. Do you remember the books where it was like you flip through it and it said if you're going to take a turn to the left, go to page 168. If you're going to turn to the right, go to page 174. To me, that's what scenario is. It's unless you're playing a really highly structured scenario game, most of the game directors that I've ever played for would let you evolve your character or your own storyline. I mean, I convinced Wayne Dollick that I had the role players on the other side at one of his games hooked on drugs.
Yes, and he told him and made it canon.
And he went, that makes sense because y'all live in the urban areas and you're raiding the farms for food, and you would have drugs in the city.
Yep.
And so, that was not written into the game. But
right.
I was able to completely countermand the other role players because they had to come back to me every 30 minutes, or they would go into withdrawals and start shooting everybody around them.
And doesn't that story sound familiar? Doesn't that story sound familiar? It sounds an awful lot like Wizards, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot.
Well, my point is that it was a write your own adventure. I didn't view it as Dungeons and Dragons because I've never played it. I can't make that comparison. But you could affect the game.
Well, see, this is one of the things.
Asset to your side.
That was one of the things that made Wayne's games way back when, and MXS's games. You could write your own story. I mean, well, the quote was what? Be all you can be in somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I can remember back when before I even started running with Joint Fury, when I was still running ArcLight as a scenario team, we were bringing typewriters to the game. We were bringing 7 different colors of cardstock.
Yep.
We were bringing 2 or 3 colors of ribbon, and we would sit there and we would type out stuff for the other side. Okay, they got a pink card. Okay, well, I'm going to be a lieutenant colonel.
Are created.
Yeah, that's why watermarks were created. That was exactly why Wayne started using watermarks.
And I remember playing some of those games and finding fake mission cards and fake role player cards on the field, and then on occasion trying to use them and just getting completely, wasted by this other side because I didn't know they were fake. But guess what? I learned real quick how to spot a real one.
Real quick, Bomber says, awesome podcast, and to tell Bobby and Barry he said hi, so Bomber's listening.
How you doing there, Bomber? Good to hear from you, brother.
Doubt.
Hey, you know what? I've eaten up enough of your time. I'm going to jump off here and let somebody else get in and talk.
Well, it was good to talk to you, Bobby. Thank you so much.
I love you, darling. Me and Miss Carrie miss the hell out of you.
Well, give her kisses for me.
I most certainly will. Lawrence, good podcast. Good job. I'll be talking to you.
Hey, man. Thanks, dude. All right.
Bye.
All right, everybody. We got about 3 more minutes, and they're going to cut me off. So it's not like I can just keep going, because in 3 minutes it's actually going to disconnect. So if you want to jump in and call, go ahead.
Well, if no one else calls,
I think we'll do a part 2. Well, we got to do a part 2. So I'm going to call a part 2.
We haven't even talked about RTD and
I know.
EMR.
We're about halfway through the Nudi story. And I'm thinking it probably is not going to be a weekly show. I mean, it may be the next time you got time, I'll just go live. Because, again, it's people can come and look at this anytime they want. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm going to go back and reference it and put the stuff into it. And so they can come back and listen to it and reference it and all of that. So I think we'll do a part 2. I'll tell you right now,
Lawrence, I was really reluctant to do this, but I've enjoyed reminiscing and going back and talking about why I am the way I am. And some of the
Epic said he just found the podcast and he wanted to say hi to you and Bobby. So I think Bobby got off before he heard that.
Well, another one of my favorite people in the world. Eric Epic Timmerman from Blitzkrieg.
And they were at the 90-second mark. So I want to thank my best friend, the player I respect the most in paintball, and that's the truth, no shit, as a player, not as a female player, as a player. There is no player I respect more than you. So I appreciate you being on the show and appreciate all the years you spent with me and the bullshit you've taken because of me and being my friend.
Well, thank you, because it's been a lot of good times, including tonight.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I hope to talk about is the price of being friends and how fucked up that is, and that's probably part of the reason why paintball has gone the way it's gone. I want to try to get more, because you're like I said, a very intelligent person. You're in the healthcare field. You've written healthcare articles. I want to start trying to tear apart some of the pieces and finish establishing who you are, but then start trying to use a little bit of that expertise that you got to maybe help people put the game back together.
Well, then another day, perhaps.
Okay. Well, we've got about 20 seconds left, so I'm going to tell you I love you, and I'm going to tell everybody else I love them too. I appreciate you being on, Barrie. Thank you.
Bye, darling.